Hello, and welcome to the Annie Altman Show, the podcast, Season 4. Welcome to Podcastukkah 2019, Episode 2. The Annie Altman Show projects are Field Me Search for the Humanity, an interactive stand-up comedy musical philosophy show from the perspective of a human named Annie. Hey, it's me. The Humanity is about how no one ever fully figures out how to human, how there's 10 C themes of the human experience, connected by the C theme of connection, and how openly discussing these themes is part of maximizing resource equity and minimizing human suffering. Today I'm here with Dovid Krafchow. He is a Kabbalistic tarot reader, studier, writer. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Annie, for having me. I'm proud to be here on your show.
I would love for you to share a little bit about what is Kabbalistic tarot. What are those words separately? How did you get into writing?
Yes. Well, actually 50 years ago, I began my journey in the Kabbalah. And I started from the alphabet, the alphabet. I knew nothing whatsoever. And they say, teaching a child is like writing on a page with, a blank page. And teaching an adult is like writing on a page that's been erased. So sort of that's, one can never erase the past. There's always the imprint of like what had been written there before. And so that previous life merged with this dedication to Torah. Torah is the general name for all Jewish teachings. Torah means teaching. That's what the word means.
That's my first hearing that. Wow.
Yes.
Cool.
And people who translate the Torah as a testament miss the whole point. Because it was written to teach, meaning every teacher, to a sign of a good teacher is the students are asking questions, right? If they're not asking questions, they're not learning anything.
Definitely.
And a testament is what you don't ask a question to. It's like last will and testament, the guy said, just take it. So in a sense, that changes like every word. And the Torah is actually written, it's interesting, Torah is very gender oriented. And so you have a male Torah and you have a female Torah. And the male Torah is the written Torah. And every word has to be written exactly as it was previous. Like we have many laws about how you write a Torah. It has to be written like with a feather. And no letter can touch another letter. And every word has to be in the same place it was in the original Torah. Because this is prophecy, and it has to be kept exact. See? And then there's the feminine Torah, and the feminine Torah is the oral Torah. And that's the Torah, how, and they're together, these two Torah, the male and the female, see?
Wow, I've never heard that gender separation either.
Yes.
I mean, I've heard a lot of the different gender rules within Torah and within Jewish law and belief. I haven't heard that distinction of written versus oral and the distinction of testament and Torah.
Yes. You see, I think these are extremely important things to understand. And the three levels of the oral Torah, are the Talmud, which is law, and the Medrash, which is story. And then the Zohar, which is the highest of all, is secret. Zohar means brilliance. And then the Kabbalah. The Zohar was written 2,000 years ago by Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, but it wasn't brought to the earth for 1,000 years. A man named Moshe de Leon in Spain, he got it and he wrote it all down. He channeled it. but no one could understand it. I mean, could understand the words, but just couldn't understand what it was talking about. But it was obvious it was something like really deep. And then 300 years later came the Arizal, and he brought us the Kabbalah. And this is a way to open up the Zohar. And the Kabbalah is considered the most feminine of all the feminine teachings of the oral Torah because it's the most hidden. And that's sort of the difference in gender between man and woman, that man is revealed and woman is hidden. And which, you know...
Biologically, there's things that support that or that are reflections of that.
Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, our anatomy.
Yep.
Right? And this is just very significant. We're not equal. You know, we're unique. Each one is unique. And man's job is to hold woman above himself. That's what's really, that's how there's peace in the world.
You said this to me when we first met in person, and I am intrigued, and I also am resistant to the idea of anything that is not a horizontal relationship, an even playing field, anything about, you know, wanting to say, well, what are all these waves of feminism that have happened if it's not about equality and genders being unique and also equal? Then it's, you know, that brings up all sorts of civil rights movements of, well, separate but equal, is that even what does that mean, or what does equality even look like? And
yes,
like, what does it mean to say, you know, the masculine is holding the feminine above it? What is this, a like women and children first in crisis sort of a thing?
That's certainly true, but also, like, I think the most obvious way, you know, is sexuality. That a man holds woman above himself if a man holds himself back in order that a woman can have more pleasure. That's holding a woman above yourself.
Totally. And again, the anatomical differences about male and female orgasm and timing and all of that. Right.
And so that's, you know, saying that, you know, the woman's pleasure is more important to me than my pleasure. See, we kind of live in a society which is the opposite, where women are there to give men pleasure, instead of that men are there to give women pleasure. And that's kind of the, the Torah's outlook on this.
That men are there to serve women.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, I mean, you know, in primitive times, I mean, the men fought, you know, to protect the women and the children. That's what's important. And men, you know, don't have such a problem. You know, if they know I'm sacrificing myself for my women and my children, I'll do it. You know, because men are made like that. We're supposed to be men, right? We're supposed to protect our women.
It's so interesting watching or even not watching historical things I've not been around to watch, and seeing how gender roles shift.
Yes.
And also what seems to stay the same as technology and family units and all sorts of other things shift.
I mean, one of the we've kind of become asexual, you know.
People saying there's no gender, there's no sex. Or...
Yeah, there's no difference. We're just all, you know, just some anatomical whatever, you know.
Well,
and
could
that's
guess
not
that there
really, that, you know, it's just not really true. I mean, and because of this, you know, actually the sperm count has gone way down in the world.
Maybe we're overpopulated and people are...
I don't know. We're not over, but we have too many rich people. But I mean, we don't have too many people, and the earth can support lots of people. You know, that's not the problem. But I mean,
you don't?
Yeah.
I go well. So I was just last night talking to someone about agender and asexuality and how that's distinct from not transsexuality, being a trans person, and homosexuality and heterosexuality and bisexuality, and just sort of how all these things intersect. And
Yes.
what I'm curious about is
Yeah.
that as I tend to think of things as a pendulum swing and going from one extreme to the other, and then finding a midpoint that in the same way that being genderless could be someone's experience, being very connected to gender could be someone's experience as well, and how to have, hold the space, as they say, for all of those. Because I definitely, as I identify, I connect with being a woman, and with other women I've talked to about their connection with that as well. It can be a challenge to figure out how to talk about our own experiences in a way that still acknowledges the validity of any experience from both sides. Yes.
Well, I'm glad you brought up homosexuality, because it's something that has really been, the knowledge has really been abused. Because they take the prohibition to homosexuality from the Torah. Because in the Torah, God says it's disgusting. And everyone takes it out of the Torah like that. But the truth is that the prohibition is only Jewish men. That's it. That's what's disgusting to man. To God is Jewish men who are homosexuals. Now,
other religious testaments say similar things about men and homosexuality. A man laying with another man in the...
The Bible certainly takes it from the Torah. And the truth is that, first of all, lesbians is just a pejorative term to women, because in Torah, women being with other women is not considered a sexual act. It's just normal.
Can it be still sexual and be normal? If two women are having sex, the Torah wouldn't consider that a sexual act?
It's just not considered sex. I mean, and women can do whatever they want. They can orgasm, they can do whatever they want. But it's just not considered sex.
Interesting. Is it only considered sex if procreation is an option?
No. It's just that there has to be a man. That's what's considered sex.
Would two men in the Torah... I mean, I guess if that's like really not considered sex, if that's put out in the Torah as not acceptable.
Well, it's sex. It is sex, but but it's only what's prohibited is Jewish men. Other men are not prohibited. No other man in the world is prohibited. It's a thing that's just about Jewish men.
That seems like a little Jewish extremist to me, or like a little.
I mean, that's the law.
There's
reasons for it.
What are the reasons?
They're very logical reasons. See?
What are they?
And it has to do with the circumcision. See, because the circumcision is a sign. Abraham was the first one to do it. And then to his children, both the Arab and the Jewish children, we all circumcise. It's such a big deal. And what's the big deal about it?
Yeah, and it's such a big controversy now, or it's becoming more talked about.
Right. But we have to understand what it's about and why it's important to us. Because the foreskin gives more pleasure to the man and to the woman. And there's two essences in the world, which are male and female. And so the female is pleasure. That is the essence of life. And the male is will. So the circumcision is a sign of we reject the pleasure to do the will of God.
This is connected to what you were saying earlier about men putting women above themselves, is to say,
yes.
I don't have this pleasurable part of me to able to focus on your pleasure.
Yeah, on the pleasure of woman, the pleasure of God, because the the first letter of God's name, it's a 4-letter name, is called Yud, and the Yud looks like the opening at the end of the penis. That's what's being revealed. That's what the woman wants. That's the longing of the woman, is really for the Yud.
Wow, I haven't heard that connection either.
And she is the Hey. Yud Hey is God's name. Yah, like hallelujah. Yah is a name, see? And man is Ish and woman is Isha. And when you take the Yud from man and the He from the woman, it makes Yah, and it leaves in each case Aish, which is fire. So man is the fire of the Yud, and woman is the fire of the He. And when they come together, it makes God's name. That's why when people have sex, they're always calling out God's name. Whoever, all through the world, it's just a thing that happens. And it's really, that's why the Torah is divided. Everything is male and female. And so, like one of the things, like you're talking about man holding woman above himself, it's not just man and woman, but it means that if we're doing something, you know, like you're giving a broadcast, a podcast, right? And so you want to hold the receiver above yourself. It's not about what you want to do. It's about you want the receiver to receive it. So that's the male energy holding the female energy above himself, even though you're a woman. We're all male and female.
We all have, the giving and receiving.
The giving and the receiving. And so in Hebrew, love is ahev. And it's made from two words. The aleph is I, and the hev means to give. And that's love. But you can't just give. You have to also make sure the person wants to receive it. Now, I wanted to give someone a book recently, and I said, here, I want to give you this book. And she said to me, all right, I'll receive it. And I realized that I should have asked her, will you accept my book? That would have been much nicer than saying, I'm giving you a book, Mm-hmm. Like that wasn't being sensitive to the person receiving it. That maybe they already had too many books, maybe they don't read, or maybe, whatever. It was just being completely insensitive to the receiver. So in that way, we should all, hold the feminine above ourselves. If we're giving, we should hold the receiver above ourselves. In the same way, if you gave you gave $1 to someone on the street, right? Well, you don't want to just, here's $1. You want to say something to him. Thank you for taking my body. Yeah, something.
Eye contact.
Yeah, because, otherwise, it's not really received. It's just given.
Ooh, yeah. I like that phrasing of it.
And
to see the cycle of it.
And so just to tie tarot into it.
Yes, I was about to transition to your book and how did you get into tarot from all of this studying scripture?
Yeah, well, the Kabbalah is basically, it can be sort of boiled down to the tree of life. And the tree of life is based from the four-letter name of God, Yud He Vav He. And when you stack the Yud He Vav He's vertically, so it makes the form of a human being. You have the head and the arms and the shoulders and the body and hips and legs.
Wow, cool imagery again.
Huh?
Cool, it's a cool image.
Yes, and it means that every person is a name of God, as are all the animals. That we all have heads and emotions and action, right? And these are like three worlds and everything. And so the tarot cards, what would happen, I studied Kabbalah for, I guess it was 20 years then. And this is like 30 years ago. And I walked into this bookshop, and I had just come back to America. I just got divorced. I didn't know what to do with my life. I walked into this bookstore, and I saw a book about tarot. And I'd had an experience years before in tarot. And so I picked it up, I'm looking through it, and every page is talking about Kabbalah. So I've been studying Kabbalah, so I bought some cards, I laid them out on the floor, and I could understand them. I saw the tree of life in them, how they're divided into the tree of life. And so since the tree of life is the pattern, it's kind of like the Kabbalistic atom, everything's patterned in this way, called the 10 Sfirot, the 10 luminaries, which are in the sun and the 9 planets, and in the earth, in the 7 continents and the 3 oceans, and in the human being, which made in 3 triangles, and then the power of speech. So we all share this.
I followed like the majority of that and not all of it. Whoa.
Well, the main thing is that the name of God is kind of the prototype to everything in life. So when a person takes the cards and turns them over, so they're able to get a message from their soul. I just want to add, I always ask people, you know where your soul is? And people generally don't. You feel you got a soul. You see people die, they're alive, then they're dead, and it seems like what's missing is the soul. Where is the soul? So the truth is that the soul is carved out of a star and exists, it's very big, but exists, it connects to us through one line of light and comes into the right side of our brain, and that's what animates us. And when we die, that cord gets cut by the angel of death, and we go back, our consciousness goes back to our soul, and the body falls into the earth. And it's the whole thing is a very nice plan. And so the tarot cards is a way for a person to get, a message from the soul. It's not going to ever predict the future. The soul would never do that. But just try to give a person a reflection of, who they are from heaven. And of course, everything, because it's about the body, it's very male and female, and a lot of beautiful ideas and wisdom, come out from the different configurations of the cards. So that's why I do it.
Letting yourself connect with different parts of you, or something much bigger than you.
Well, certainly it's much bigger than me. I mean, it's the soul, and I'm kind of just there to read it. That's what I do. The person chooses the card, and I read the message. And I've written other books, and I'm really, I wrote about meditation in time, and it's all about the calendars, and it basically covers like the last 250,000 years. And one of the interesting things about time, particularly our last 6,000 years, is that it goes in 1,000-year increments. And we're in the 6th, like the last day, because each day of creation, 6 days of creation, each is a prototype to 1,000 years. And so this 1,000 years that we're 780 years into is of sex.
And these topics we're talking about sex and gender and how do we navigate this? Yeah,
because all of this is coming out now. Everything is being revealed, and it's the one thing that's really a mystery to everyone, is what is sex. So I feel
it brought us all here, and what is it?
Yeah, so I feel I can give you an answer to that.
Let's hear it.
Okay, that the first human being was androgynous.
Whoa.
That's why woman is taken out of man, right? It was male and female. It says right there in the Torah, God made man, male and female.
Whoa. So it had to have been an androgynous first human that had both the masculine and feminine components.
Absolutely.
Wow, I've never heard that until this moment. Whoa. I love that stuff. I love that sort of stuff. I like the biological component of that I find so fascinating, is that biologically we're confused about sex and gender, and we know that XX and XY are the statistically most common configurations, and also even chromosomally sex is not that straightforward. There's XXY or XO, or there's
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is even on the most, you're zooming out to this huge place, and even on this super zoomed in place, there's so many unknowns about, like you said, we don't really know what sex is.
Right.
Both the action of it and the identifier of it.
The identifier of it. What do you mean?
The identity of, identifying as one sex or the other, or like we were saying before, identifying as neither sex.
Yes. In Jewish law, whenever they talk about things that are gender oriented, they always have to add in, what about the person who doesn't know what sex he is?
And doesn't feel associated to a sex, you mean? Or just doesn't?
He doesn't know. So it can be anatomically, that there can be like a covering where you actually can't see what the sex is. I think it also means psychologically that a person, they might have the sex that their body is, but they're not sure that's their sex. So they don't know. And they have laws about them. So it's obviously something that's, it's part of the human experience. But the thing is, when the human being was androgynous, it was able to conceive a child.
Because it had both sexes.
Yes.
Wow, I also just connected that in what you're saying about men putting women above themselves and men giving to women, that also then you're saying that an androgynous first human, it was like the masculine gave to the feminine to separate into a separate human.
Well, the man did,
or the feminine received that separation to.
Well, I mean, according to to the Torah, that the man, he couldn't see the woman, but they were one flesh. But man couldn't see the woman
because they were one flesh.
Yeah, so God had to put him asleep and then took woman out.
Oh, okay. So God did the giving and receiving.
God did it, and then brought woman to man, and then he said, this is what I've been looking for. He says everything else has a mate, but he couldn't see woman within. But when they were one flesh, see, it's interesting because when God separates them and then tells them, okay, go out, pru, go have sex. Like people say it's a big sin. I mean, God told them, pru, go have sex. There's no sin in that. And what I want to say, I forget. I was going to a point and I forgot it.
The sexes need each other is something I think on a lot with this.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. And God says, go be one flesh. That's what sex accomplishes, one flesh, like you were before. So it means, in my mind, that before each, the original person lived on that high level of pleasure. Like what we feel from sex, from just one organ in the body, we have all this feeling of pleasure. But think what the first man felt when they were completely enmeshed in pleasure.
All the time. There's a constant orgasm.
Just all the time. It was just like this constant, just wow, man. And that's what God wanted. But the human being, it was too much for the human being. So God had to separate them. So we have a little bit of that feeling when we have sex. Of being that one flesh again, who we originally were. And I think it's part of what draws man to woman, woman to man, is to re-experience that idea of the original human being who was truly one flesh.
Wow.
That would be my, and I've
thought
about
ideas
this for many, many years.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a good way to explain what sex is.
And is directly connected to needing each other. Spiritually, yes. Biologically, yes. Neither sex can reproduce without the other sex.
Precisely. And see, in the previous world, the Torah starts with the letter Bet. And in Torah, every letter has a number associated with it. And the Bet is the second letter, so it's number 2. And so the Arizal, who brought us the Kabbalah, explained that this is a sign that we are the second world in our solar system. That there was a previous world where woman was completed in that world. Everything was feminine. And because of that, there wasn't any sex. Because you need man to have sex. But sex was there. It was just, it didn't need each other. And one of the things that came out from that is that like the animal also came out from that. And that's why animals have these animal instincts of, they just take what they want. Because that's how the previous world was, a world of independence, where everyone, either you were being taken or you were taking.
Very masculine stereotype sounding.
Very masculine stereotype. And it's really what the animals are.
We're animals too.
We are animals, but we're different. We're different in 2 things. One, we're erect, which means that the head governs the heart. And 2, that we can articulate thoughts into speech. So the thing is that the animal came from the previous world, but the human being did not. The human being was made from this earth, molded by God, brought into life, and the animals were just called out of the earth. Why? because they came here from the previous world. The previous world was on Mars, and it's full of water. It broke, and all the life came down and embedded in the earth, and then they just had to be called out, except for the human being. The human being had to be made because this was new. Man was new, and suddenly now sex can be a thing, and it's still a thing, and no one knows quite what to make out of the whole thing.
No,
right?
Or a lot of people don't know or don't think about or just outright disagree with the things you were saying about Mars or any of these things with religion and laws, and it seems like we're collectively sort of reckoning a lot of these questions and a lot of these unknowns about what is sex, what is it that brought us here, what is it that keeps us here.
Yes, well, this is what
Torah.
Well, that's what Torah is all about, and that's why the whole time sequence is very important, and life existed for millions of years before this, and will go on for millions of years after this, but this little segment of 6,000 years is really important. Why? Because God wanted to be known in low, and that's us. We're low. We're the lowest thing in creation. We are actually the center of creation. Everything around us is spiritual, and we are physical. And the point of that is that the physical covers the spiritual light, and therefore we have freedom of choice. So now when we know God down here, we really know God. See? Because it's our freedom of choice to know God. Where if you know God in heaven, you just see the light of God. But here it becomes like a real relationship with God.
Because it has to be a conscious, however someone defines God to them or their language, because it's something not seen.
Yes.
It's a conscious choice, to use some of the 10 C words, to believe.
Well, to know. It's not about believing. We believe what we don't know. God wants to be known in this world. God doesn't want to be believed. We believe what we don't know. God doesn't want a bunch of people who don't know if there's God. God wants people to know there's God. That's having a relationship. God wants a relationship with us,
Hey, God, what's your perspective on agnostics?
I mean, how can we have a relationship? I believe that you're here. I don't know that you're here.
Ooh.
Right?
Well, yes, and the difference is, as you were just saying, as humans, we are in these human suits that we're in are tangible physical reality in a way that these other ideas and concepts and the other words that you're sharing are words. They're different from, the part of me that used to be so rigid science minded loves graphs and the physical touch and experiencing things with senses, and that to me is a more accessible and an easier pathway, or it certainly has been, to accept something as, quote, known rather than a belief. Because for me, it's feelings are very spiritual in a sense that, while not the end all be all of anything, that feelings are also intangible. It is a sensation, sure, in the body. It's different from the five senses. You don't reach out and touch sadness or happiness. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that's been a big piece of the access point to accepting, knowing things that I can't see.
You feel them.
Yes.
Yeah. So we all have different ways, different configurations, how we interact with the Creator. And see, here's the thing. It's just one other thing that I just want to point out, because I think it's just very important. I'll ask you, is God physical or spiritual?
Both.
Neither.
Cool.
See?
How not spiritual?
Yes. Well, see, that's where monotheism comes in. Monotheism is like the head spiritual God. But these are just part of the other gods, see? Because Abraham's message that God is one, in Torah, that's like the main prayer. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, God is one. And the meaning of that is God is not first. So that's not the meaning. God is one means that in creation, we live in a dualistic creation. Even our
brain anatomy.
Yeah, not just our brain, our heart, our liver. I mean, everything like is in twos. Our kidneys. And
not all of our organs are in twos.
Pretty much. I mean, even the liver has a separation. But think about it, the kidneys are in two. The sexuality, the ovaries, the testicles. There's certainly a lot. The heart has
there's
two
chambers.
sides. Yeah. The brain certainly has two lobes. Like everything is dualistic. Even our galaxy is like a it's there with, I forget what the name of the galaxy is, but we're there with right next to another galaxy, and then there's nothing else around. Everything is dualistic. So the concept of one in duality is able to be everywhere all the time to everybody. That's why we call God one, not because God is first, because God is everywhere all the time to everybody. It doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter what you believe or what you don't believe. When you talk to God, God is there. That's the Jewish message.
It's a fun and goofy paradox with duality that also some higher something is everywhere.
Because it's not part of the duality. Part of duality is physical and spiritual. They're both created.
So now I'm seeing a triangle.
Yeah.
Because it's outside of those things.
What
it's like a third point. Because you said it's not within the duality. So it's like
That's
an observer
right.
point, an outside point.
It's true. And it says in the Zohar that there's three knots. God, spiritual, and physical. So God's connected to the spiritual is connected to the physical. How many knots are there? There's two. What's the third? That the physical is directly connected to God. So you have that triangle again, see? So it's absolutely true, but God is not part of the duality. And so anyone who thinks or prays to spirit, isn't praying to God. Because God's not spirit. Now, God is everywhere, so God hears the prayer anyways. But it's not directed to the Creator. The Creator is not spiritual.
When you say Creator, do you mean God?
Yes.
And that's different from saying God is spiritual? Could you?
If you say God is spiritual,
still.
If you say God is spiritual, you have to write it with a small g. It's like these are the other gods, spiritual gods. They do exist. They're stars, they're constellations, and for many years, even now, people still worship them and believe that that's where the power is, see? But God is the power. God put everything and puts everything in its place moment by moment.
That you're saying with the capital G. And the Creator label. Okay.
Yes. And so that's really, is beyond creation. That's the Creator. The Creator is beyond creation. The nature of creation is not to be created, right? Creation has to be brought out of nothing, right? That's the whole idea of creation. It's brought out of nothing, because if it's not brought, it can't bring itself out of nothing.
Well, creation is another one of the 10 C's, and what I reflect on with that often is seeing a cycle with creation and destruction.
Yeah.
So creation could be born out of destruction. Yes,
but that's all like, cause and effect. When we're talking about the
like
primal,
a spark, like the Big Bang, like how do we get here first?
Yeah. And that's the Creator. So it wasn't a Big Bang, but we're actually engraved into God's light. That's where we exist. We're in the middle of God's light. We're not in the middle of emptiness. We're in the middle of light. And if you could see all the light beams that are directed towards the earth, it would just be a mantle of light everywhere. And that's the truth. We're surrounded by light, not darkness. And that's why the Big Bang is such a pernicious theory, because it makes us feel like we're just nothing. And therefore, the best we can do is progress. But progress is really a cancer, because we're just, it's impossible to outlive the universe, and we shouldn't be trying to. We should be living in this time together on this earth and really helping one another. That's what we're here to do, because that's how we fix the independence of the previous life. Now in this world, we're all missing stuff. It's very hard to be independent. You can have a podcast, we need someone else to come and
Totally.
to talk to. We all need each other. And that's what's called fixing. This world is called tikkun, and that's the way we fix things, is we help one another. And it's not about, who is the strongest, but really it's about who can cooperate the best. That's really what's going to make the world beautiful and give us all longevity. And these things, are just, we've been going in the wrong way for so long, led by, science and religion. They're both wrong.
They both get very dogmatic.
Yeah, very religious. You can't ask any questions, And it's just really, it's the human being. They want to be human. One of the most, I don't know, from all these wars in the Middle East, you watch the news, and there's one thing I saw which just riveted inside me. And this guy was he took care of the dead people. And he was showing this, and he's look at this. Love, here, there, all these people that were made to love. And now they're all dead. All that love is dead. But that guy really got it, man. That's who the human being is. We're here to love one another. Not just sing it in a song. We're here to actually, in
our actions and our feelings.
Absolutely. And it doesn't mean to give everything and have nothing, but it just means how we need to learn to live in a society. Because things are so focused on progress and everyone is just getting, left behind. Only the rich people can, get all the things, and the rest of us, we get whatever's left over. And that's where everyone is pointed, towards progress. You have to go into outer space, what the fuck for? I think
about
that's
that one
such a
as well,
waste
too.
of money. And if we took all that energy, we could build a toilet in downtown LA. How about that,
Get
that
food
would be
to everyone.
Yeah.
All sorts of things.
All sorts of things.
That seem to me, I agree, that seem... That it feels upsetting that there's so many things that are being prioritized before access to toilets and food and clean water and
it's
places
absurd.
to sleep.
And it's all for progress. We don't have time for that. We have to progress quick before the world runs out.
Which we're not going to outlast, as you said.
Well, we're not going to outlast the universe.
Because what I'm saying is, when people say that, it's like when humans say save the planet.
Yeah.
And they're saying save the humans, in my perspective, because the planet is going to be fine. When humans are saying the world, really what people are saying, what I hear when people say that is, my time is running out. That's why I need to progress. I need to take action steps forward because of being aware that this existence as a human is temporary.
Right. So they made us think, since life just happened, it probably happened to other places, and there's aliens all over, and none of this is true. It didn't just happen. God made it. And we're the center of creation. We want to go out into outer space. It's ridiculous. And we could make our planet just beautiful. With lots of room, lots of resources. We're just not working as a human body. See, and that's the thing, that the Earth is a large human body. Just like the human is a small Earth. You heard that say, every human's a little Earth. Well, the Earth is a large body, and you can see this in the Arctic is like the skull, and the lobes of Scandinavia are the brain, and Eurasia are the shoulders and the chest, and the arms are sunken into the waters, but the hands come up in England and Japan. And Africa is the right leg, and South America is the left leg, and Australia and New Zealand are the ovaries, because Earth is woman. That means the sex of woman is the Middle East, and right at the very end of the Mediterranean is the place of conception, is the land of Israel, and Canada is the back. And leaves America as the buttocks, with the Mississippi running, running down right down the middle, which makes New Orleans the anus. Nonetheless,
what do you think about that, New Orleans listeners? New Orleans.
Anyone who's been down to the French Quarter at 4 a.m. will know exactly what I mean. Every smell known to the human being is there. Nonetheless, our assholes in Washington, D.C.
But, and all the parts need the other parts.
All the parts need the other parts. And if we were smart, right, we wouldn't compete with the other parts. We would know that, you want something done, made, send it to China, send it to India. They have the people, they have the hands. Each part of the earth has a different thing to do, and if we did our parts, we could work together as one body. That's what we should do, and we should then be a healthy body and make sure all the parts are doing well, because as we know, if your little toe hurts, your whole body hurts. And that's how we should feel in the earth, and we should use like computers and all this stuff to make sure all our people are doing well. Everyone should do well. Either you have something to give or you need something, and someone needs to give it to you, because we all have that need to give, whether to be talked to or, people shouldn't have to feel they have to run out and make money to try to keep up with, this ever expanding, disparity, in income. And we'll never catch up. It's absurd. The whole thing is completely absurd. And I don't know.
It seems to be forgetting a lot of this knowing that everything is connected and that all the parts need other parts.
Yeah.
Because how I view, specifically with wealth disparities, is that people holding on to wealth and not sharing it ends up being more expensive for them.
Yes.
In the long run, to take care of and help things or manage things that come up that would be less expensive in terms of dollars and emotional, spiritual, not spiritual, whatever kinds of energy, to address the root of, to prevent something in the first place, to focus on access to basic resources.
Right.
As the priority.
Absolutely. And see, if people understood that we're here for a very short time, and it didn't just come out of nowhere, this was built by God. And when we leave, we're going to go to heaven. There's nowhere else to go. And in heaven, the worst pain in heaven is embarrassment. And so, how life goes is when we're young, we're very much in the present. Until you get old enough to have to look back and see the things that you really fucked up in life. And now you're always looking back at the past to try to fix the past so that your present will be all right. If you did things wrong in the past, so it comes up as you're grown up and these things come out. You go to therapy, do all this stuff. And when you get old, that's when you have to look to the future. Because you're going to die and you're going to go to heaven. You don't want to be embarrassed. And that's why people, when they get older, they tend to give more.
They do.
Because you want to be able to say, well, I made all this money, but I gave it to, a good cause. I tried to do something good with it. And that means a lot in the next world. It means all that you worked and did, that you helped someone with. And if you just kept it and made more money and bought an island somewhere, and you go to heaven, you're embarrassed. Look what I did. I had all this possibility, and I used it all on myself. And that's a thing that is written on you. Everyone in heaven sees it. I'm a schmuck. And everyone sees it. You got to live with that. You can come back and rectify what you did.
I'm wondering how much the internet as a new tool is bringing up some of that same feeling of embarrassment by being a public record and being a place for accountability and people to connect and talk about these concepts more. And I'm curious the role that technology plays in bringing some of those same things you were just talking about, some of those same concepts into the here and now of this human experience. Like there's a Twitter account that's something along the lines of like, has Jeff Bezos ended world hunger yet? And like people really publicly putting the stuff that we're talking about as well out there in all sorts of ways.
Right. Well, having lived a long time, I absolutely remember when they used to harass you on the phone.
Who's they?
Whoever these dudes are, the government, whatever, to make you afraid that you're being watched and listened to. See?
Oh, so 1984 vibes.
Yeah. And then even before you, but in our time, because of technology, now we're watching them. So it's a very different...
Are people filming cops or filming any interaction?
Yeah, everything. They have nowhere to hide. And for these people who are not doing things for the good of humanity, but for the good of themselves, are going to get caught up in this. But here's the thing to understand, that through progressing the human being through these 6,000 years, we're 5,780, that each generation gets lower. That's why we have this technology, because we're the lowest generation, not because we're the highest.
What do you mean by low and high here?
That our inability to live on this planet has, we've become so weak that we rely upon technology. And we can't live without it. They say if the technology went down, there would be like 90% of the people would die.
What? Whoa.
Yeah, I've heard these. I mean, it's just...
I haven't heard that number.
Yeah, it's just really because we're all, we don't know how to live out on the street, right? You have to live out in the street in the cold. Only it's very hard. People would die. They're not used to, food and water that's not, we really... but for sure the rich would live because they got generators and they got food and they have everything that they need. And that's kind of what we're being pushed towards, is when, everything's going to fall apart and the rich, just like, when the stock market breaks, what happens? It goes way down and the rich people buy everything up and then they start selling it again. I mean, so for them, it's good. Any kind of destruction gives them more money. And so we can't let these people be steering the boat because they're going to steer right into the iceberg. They just want to sink the thing because that keeps them in power.
What sounds like, or my understanding of what we're saying now is that the internet is a tool to alter where the boat is going.
Absolutely. And I think that's why you see so many protests throughout the world now, because we can all be on our iPhones or whatever phones and connect with one another. Of course, the bad side is that, we don't have as much interpersonal connection. There's always a good and a bad of things.
The dualism once again.
Yeah, but it certainly has brought us to a time where these people who claim to be in charge are now having the light focused on them, and we just see it's not. They're not even into right or wrong. They're just into how can I get out of this. It's absurd. There's just law, but if you're rich enough, the law doesn't apply to you. It just applies to us poor folks. The whole thing is rotten to the core, and there's going to be a very dramatic shift. And it always happens, it's like a rubber band when you're pulling the two sides apart, and eventually it breaks.
Eventually
you know?
it breaks us, right?
And
I
that
do
will lead
wish-
us to a new kind of paradigm in living. You know?
Yeah. I do wish that, and I know, but beyond belief,
Yeah.
that more people are seeing this light,
Absolutely.
quote unquote. And that may or may not be people believing in God or a creator or knowing in a God or a creator. That's different for me than the knowing of we're all connected, we all need each other. And I do wish.
Love.
Yeah. Yes.
Love.
And I wish that, and I see the ways that some people with extraordinary amounts of wealth are realizing that they're part of the all in this together as well. That all humans experience love. All humans experience loss of love.
Absolutely.
No amount of money is going to impact, money can buy tools for happiness, sure. And
money can't buy you love. The Beatles said it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's absolutely true, And, but, we should have a society that promotes love. But by squeezing everyone like this, they're promoting greed and creating all the bad human attributes.
What is your take on, or what are your ideas for how to remind people that we all need each other and that we're all connected?
There's so many poor people, particularly here in LA, and people living on the streets and stuff. It's so much in our face that, you go out.
It's like, how could you not see that we're all connected? Because it's all around us all the time.
Yeah, it's just, you go out into outer space. If they found an amoeba in outer space, they would throw a party. And here we have human beings, and they're just letting these human beings just, disintegrate. It's terrible. And if you do something wrong, you go to prison, and they feed you, and they house you, and they take care of your medical. But if you're on the street, and the only thing you did wrong is you're poor, you don't get any of that. So, it's just, unquestionably, this is just corrupt. This is just terrible. We need to care for the human being. Until all the human beings are cared for, we have no place in outer space or anything else, or progress in general. Progress has become a cancer. We have enough shit to last us 1,000 years. We don't need any new phone or new, we need to go the opposite way. We just say, stop, we've had enough. The cancer, you don't keep feeding it. You stop it, if you have to, you cut it out. But we have to recognize that, it's just eating up everything. Progress, go up into outer space. How much does that pollute the planet? And to get those metals to the kind of perfection they need, it takes all sorts of processes that make all sorts of pollution. So someone can go, the whole thing is just blatantly absurd, and we just need enough of us to come together. We could, just in the United States, we could just set aside a day and just buy nothing on that day, just boycott the economy, to show them that we have power, that they can't just run over us and do whatever they want. And we can bring them down in a week. We could bring the whole thing down, and maybe then they'll start listening to the people. That's what I think.
And maybe the people will start listening to themselves more and remember that we as people made up money and made up the economy, and so we can make it literally whatever we want.
Absolutely.
We can let capitalism be in some places, and we can take capitalism out of healthcare and the prison industrial complex, which is all sorts of corruption.
Oh, just terrible. Prisons are just the worst places in the world. They are just terrible. Even the term for-profit prison being accepted as a term is absurd to me. I agree with you.
We're that there's some people profiting over locking some people up.
And those
rather
people,
than, of course, then that's not going to be, of course, true
justice,
quote unquote. And I was going to say rehabilitation.
Oh, rehabilitation. So, but the thing is that they get in there and they lobby for stronger, longer sentences because that's more money for them. I mean, the whole thing is corrupt because we and the one candidate that I really like, and I think she's saying all the right things, is Marianne Williamson. And everyone laughs at her, but she has a real, human approach to this. She understands these things, how absurd all of this is. And so, that's wonderful. We have a really strong voice that's really, it's almost on the stage, It's like, and she has a large following. And I think it's really wonderful that people are able, these charismatic people are able to take a stand now, and people can, be behind them. And this is all part of this change, which is happening. It's happening. It's absolutely happening. We're going into 1,000 years of woman, 1,000 years of peace. Nothing can hold this back.
The pendulum is swinging.
Yes, absolutely.
I really appreciate you coming and sharing so much. There's a lot of ideas in this conversation that have been new to me, and thank you for bringing them on and sharing them to whoever's listening as well.
Well, thank you, Annie. It's really easy talking to you, and I hope you do lots more of these, and get this information out into the world. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to us talking more, and please check out any of Dovid's books, his website. Keep your eyes peeled.
I do have a website. It's called Kabbalistic News. It's spelled with a C, not a K. All right.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks for being you. Hey, thanks for sticking around till the end. Please check out the AnnieAltmanShow.com and also patreon.com/The Annie Altman Show if you're able and interested in donating $1 or more per month to these projects. Non-dollar ways to share value includes and is not limited to sharing anything, the podcast, any YouTube video, any blog post, any social media account, subscribing, following anywhere, rating or reviewing anything, sending any feedback or ideas, and or connecting me with people for the podcast or other projects you feel would enjoy this work. In my opinion, word of mouth is the only quote real advertising, so here I am using words from my mouth.